Hello students, I welcome you all in this last lecture on chemical kinetics. In the previous three lectures in the same series, we have discussed everything about the chemical kinetics like order of the reaction, molecularity of the reaction, the rate laws, differential rate law, integrated rate law. Then we saw how do we write the reaction mechanism and how we determine the rate determining step for a particular complex mechanism. Then we saw the half-life concept of half-life, how it depends on the initial concentration of the reactant for different type of reactions. And now we will conclude this topic in this lecture. So let us continue with another concept very much related to the chemical kinetics, that is the activation energy. So, as the name is suggesting, activation energy is the energy required for the activation. So, what needs to be activated? In a chemical reaction, when we talk about a chemical transformation, that is conversion of reactant into product. So, in that case, the reactant molecules they needs to be activated. So, by achieving that much amount of energy, it becomes possible for the reactant molecule to get themselves convert into the product molecule. So this is actually the minimum amount of energy which is required for the chemical reaction, and we call it as activation energy. And this is denoted by the symbol EA. Now, an example just as a ball, it cannot get over a hill if it does not roll up the hill with enough energy. In that case, the ball has to roll with the enough amount of energy so that it can cross the hill. So, similarly, a reaction cannot proceed unless the molecules possess sufficient energy to get over the activation energy barrier. So, you can imagine this small hill as the activation energy barrier, and if the reactant molecules they have sufficient energy to cross this barrier, only then they can convert themselves into the product molecule. So this amount of energy, which is actually in excess to the ground energy of the reactant molecule, we call it as the activation energy. And this barrier, which is actually between the reactant and the product, this energy barrier is known as the activation energy barrier. So activation energy is required for the conversion of reactant molecule into the product molecule. So we know that molecules they must possess a minimum amount of energy to react, and that is why because according to the collision theory we have discussed in the previous lecture, molecules they are colliding together for the chemical transformation to occur. So to collide with each other with sufficient amount of energy, they must gain this minimum amount of energy. So, in order to form the product, bond must be broken in the reactant, and you need energy for breaking the bond. So, basically, the bond breakage it requires energy. Then we also know that molecules they are not having that much kinetic energy at their ground state. So they are moving so slowly, and with too little kinetic energy, they don't react when they collide. So it is also required to increase their kinetic energy, and that can be done only when we are providing extra energy to the molecule. So in that case only they move with the sufficient energy and then they collide with uh, themselves in order to react. So this minimum amount of energy is known as the activation energy EA, and we define it as the minimum energy required to initiate a chemical reaction. So we initiate the chemical reaction, we have to give the activation energy to the reactant molecule, and for different type of reactions, because the nature of the reactant is different, then the activation energy will also be different in the different reactions. So let us take an example here. Consider this conversion of methyl isonitrile into methyl cyanide. So here in the H3C and triple bond C, the chemical conversion is what? This bond is getting broken between carbon and nitrogen, and then the carbon is again attaching itself with the carbon of the cyanide group. So here the C and C bond length bond, it bends until the CN bond breaks, and then NC portion is perpendicular to the H3C portion, the methyl portion. So this bond is getting broken, and this part, the functional group take up the orientation like this, and now it may be having a weaker force of attraction between the two moieties, and then finally what happens, it is rotating like this, and now the methyl group is getting attached with the carbon of this functional group. So now the intermediate structure that we are observing here, it is not reactant, it is not product, it is representing a path by which the chemical transformation is occurring. So this structure is called as the activated complex or transition state. So this transition state is actually representing the path, the mechanism of the reaction by which the reactants are getting converted into product. So the energy required for the above twist and break, it is called the activation energy, EA. Now, once the carbon-nitrogen bond is broken, the nitrogen-carbon portion can continue to rotate, forming a carbon-carbon-nitrogen bond. And here, what does the reaction look like in the term of a graph of energy that are involved in the process? So this is the graph, and you see that this is the reactant molecule at the ground energy state, right? Now it has to cross this hill, the activation energy hill, and this barrier will be crossed only when it will attain this much amount of energy, which we call it as activation energy, EA. So once the molecule is crossing this energy barrier, now what happens, at the top of this barrier, at the top of this barrier, why we require this much amount of energy? So at the top of this barrier, you can see that there is formation of this activated complex. So basically, the activation energy is required for the formation of activated complex, which finally leads to the formation of product. So if you are not providing the activation energy to the reactant molecule, then there will be no formation of the activated complex. And this activated complex is what? You can see that it is a high energy moiety, high energy arrangement of the atoms inside the molecule. So this arrangement is actually responsible for the formation of product. Once you provide the sufficient energy, this activated complex is getting formed, and finally it is converting into the product. So this is the energy, the EA is the activation energy, that is difference between the ground state energy of the reactant molecule and the energy of activated complex. Now, if you look at the energy difference between the reactant and the product, so you can see that the product is much lower in energy as compared to the reactant. So this is the enthalpy of the reaction, which you see here, delta E, and this much amount of energy will be released after the product is formed. So different species are shown here in the circles. You can see the 3D arrangement of the molecule. So this part is the CH3 group. Here blue color is the nitrogen atom, and black color sphere is carbon atom. So now at this point you can see that the bond between the carbon and nitrogen is getting broken. Now these dotted lines, they are representing the weaker forces of attraction, and now the CN species is become perpendicular to the CH3 group. And now what happens again, the inversion takes place, and this carbon is now getting attached itself with the CH3 group. So that is how the product molecule is formed in this reaction. So activation energy is what you can see the change in the energy delta E for the reaction, and that is the difference in the energy between the reactant CH3NC and CH3CN product. So this is the reaction energy, the enthalpy of the reaction, and it is entirely different from the activation energy. So what is the activation energy? It is a difference in the energy between the reactant, that is CH3NC, and the transition state or the activated complex. So the rate depends upon the EA. EA is the activation energy. So greater the activation energy, that is if the hill is taller, you have a tall hill to cross, then what will happen? The reaction rate will be slower, because the reactant molecule, they will achieve that much amount of energy very slowly. So the rate of the reaction will be slow if you have uh, greater amount of activation energy. But if the hill is shorter, that is the height of the hill is short, you require lesser activation energy for the reactant molecule, and therefore the rate will be faster. So this should be noted here that if the forward reaction is exothermic, so in case if we talk about the exothermic reaction, in those cases what happens, the energy of the product is lesser as compared to energy of the reactant. So there will be overall release of the energy after the product formation. But the reverse is what? It is the endothermic reaction, and here what happens? The energy of the reactant, the energy of the product is what? It is greater than the energy of the reactant. So, in order to convert a reactant into the product, there is an overall absorption of the energy, and that is why it is called as endothermic reaction. So, if you see the conversion of a methyl isonitrile to methyl cyanide, this is what? This is an exothermic reaction, but the reverse is what? A conversion of the methyl cyanide into methyl isonitrile. It is what? It is the endothermic reaction. So, when you talk about the exothermic and endothermic reaction, we are talking about the delta E value, and we are not talking about the activation energy value. The methyl isonitrile molecule, it needs to gain enough energy to overcome the activation energy barrier. So, this enough energy which is required to cross the activation energy barrier, it is called as the activation energy of the reaction, right? For that reaction only, this is the activation energy. So if the methyl isonitrile is undergoing some other reaction, activation energy would be different for that reaction, because in that case a different transition state would be formed. So for different reactions of the same type of chemical compound, the value of activation energy could be different. So, from the kinetic molecular theory, we know that as the temperature increases, so there is a total increase in the kinetic energy, and the number of the molecules with energy greater than the EA increases. So, once you start providing heat, or you say energy to the reactant molecule, more molecules, they will have the energy to cross the activation energy barrier, and that is how the rate of the reaction increases, because now more and more reactant molecules, they are able to perform the reaction. So as long as the temperature is high enough, the reaction can make it over the hill, and it will proceed, that is in the forward direction, towards the formation of product. So for continuously forming the product, for the reaction to continuously proceed, it is required that you keep on providing activation energy to the reactant molecule. Otherwise, they will not be able to cross the activation energy barrier. So now in this slide, you can see the difference between the exothermic and endothermic reaction. So they are not concerned about the activation energy barrier. However, the value of the activation energy barrier can be different for both of them. But actually, they are more concerned about the delta E value. So in the exothermic reaction, you can see the energy of the reactant is greater than energy of the product. So A plus B, they are having higher energy, and C plus D having lower energy. So now what will happen? Suppose this is the activation energy barrier. You can notice that height of the activation energy barrier is same. But when the reactant is having higher energy, then it has to attain a lesser amount of energy to cross the energy barrier. But when the reactant is lower in energy, then a greater amount of energy is required to cross the activation energy barrier. So an overall conclusion can be taken here, like for the endothermic reaction, the activation energy is greater as compared to the exothermic reaction. So another thing is, when the from the activated complex, when the products are formed, so in the exothermic reaction, what happens? There is overall release of the energy. So how much energy will be released? This difference in the energy, the difference in the energy of reactant and product, this amount of energy will be released. So this will be added, this will be given to the reactant molecule, and that is how the reaction will proceed further in the forward direction. But in case of the endothermic reaction, the reactant molecules, they require to attain a certain amount of energy. So what happens? It is not the activation energy that you are required to supply to the reactant molecule, but also they have to acquire some excess energy in order to get themselves convert into product. So for the exothermic reaction, there is overall release in the energy, and for the endothermic reaction, there is overall absorption of the energy. So here the activation energy EA, it is the minimum amount of energy required to initiate a chemical reaction. So once you provide the activation energy, then only the chemical reaction can be initiated. Otherwise, it is not possible for a chemical reaction to occur. So now let us have a look on the energy diagrams for exothermic and endothermic reactions. So here you can see the first diagram is for the exothermic reactions, and on this energy diagram we have taken potential energy on the y-axis and reaction pathway, that is reaction coordinate, on the x-axis. So here you have the reactants and they have a greater energy as compared to the product. This is the activation energy barrier, the energy hill. At the top of this hill you have activated complex formed, and finally it decomposes quickly to form the product. So here the difference between the reactant and the product energy, it is released in the form of heat, and therefore the exothermic reactions, they are accompanied by the release of energy. Then in the second diagram, you see the endothermic reactions. So in the endothermic reaction, the energy of the reactant molecule, it is quite low as compared to the energy of the product. So here is the activation energy barrier, the energy hill, and at the top of the hill you get activated complex which quickly decomposes to form the product. So because a greater amount of energy is required to form the product, there is overall absorption of the energy during the course of this reaction. So in the diagram A, what is the A? A is what? It is the activation energy for the forward reaction, and B is what? B is the activation energy for the reverse reaction. So the reverse reaction is also possible, right? The reaction can take place in both the directions, in the forward direction as well as in the reverse direction. But if you can see that the energy of the forward direction is quite less, quite low as compared to the activation energy of the reverse reaction. So what will happen here? Which will be preferred? The forward reaction will be preferred here, right? And that is because the lower energy barrier is present for the forward reaction, so it will take place easily by acquiring a small amount of energy. So in the first diagram you see the forward reaction will be preferred, but in the case of second diagram, in the endothermic reaction, now you can see that again this is the energy for the reverse reaction A, and B is what? It is the energy of the reverse reaction. So because now the energy of the reverse reaction is smaller as compared to the energy of forward reaction, so the reverse reaction will be preferred over the forward reaction. So reaction will proceed in the reverse direction for the endothermic reaction. So here different energies are mentioned uh, according to the type of reaction. Then let us see the reaction coordinate diagrams. So they are very useful, they are very helpful when you are visualizing the energy changes throughout a process on a reaction coordinate diagram. Like this one for the rearrangement of methyl isonitride. So we have seen this diagram in the previous slide, and this shows that the methyl isonitride is getting converted into methyl nitrile, methyl cyanide, and here what happens? The methyl isonitrile has to cross this energy barrier. This energy hill needs to be crossed here, and the rearrangement of the bonds and the rearrangement of the structures, they are also shown here in the diagram itself. So you can also write down the structure of the activated complex in the reaction coordinate diagram, and how the bonds are getting broken and new bonds are getting formed. So that is how the conversion of methyl isonitrile takes place into methyl cyanide or methyl nitride. So it shows the energy of the reactant and the product, and the delta E you can see here. The high point on the diagram is the transition state or activated energy complex. Then the species which are present at the transition state, it is called the activated complex. The energy gap between the reactant and the activated complex is the activation energy barrier. So this is the barrier reactant molecule needs to be crossed. Then let us talk about the Arrhenius equation, and it is very important when we talk about the activation energy. So Arrhenius was a scientist, and he developed mathematical relationship between the rate constant, that is small k, and activation energy of a particular reaction. So how the rate of the reaction and activation energy, they are correlated, that can be given by using Arrhenius equation. So here k is equal to a e is to power minus e upon rt. So here a is what? It is a frequency factor, and it is basically a number that represent the likelihood that collisions would occur with the proper orientation for reaction. So, how the collisions are likely, that will be denoted by the frequency factor. So, greater the frequency factor, you say that greater would be the chances of collisions between the reactant molecule with a proper orientation, and therefore greater will be the chances of product formation. So this is the Arrhenius equation, and taking the natural log of both the sides, the equation becomes like this. So simply you have to take the natural log of the equation, and it becomes an equation of the straight line. So just compare it with the equation of straight line, that is y is equal to mx plus b. So here k is determined experimentally at the several temperatures, and you can calculate the activation energy from the slope of a plot between ln of k and 1 upon t. So from this equation, you just compare it. The y would be what? Ln of k. So we are taking it here, and x is what? X is 1 upon t. So what do you get here? 1 upon t is the x. So m would be what? ea upon r, and b is ln of a. So from this value, from the slope, you get what? You get the activation energy barrier by multiplying the slope with r value. So here you see the temperature dependence of the rate constant. So this can also be established by using the Arrhenius equation. And here you can see that K is what? It is the rate constant, EA is the activation energy in joule per mole, R is the gas constant, T is the Kelvin temperature, and A is the frequency factor. So you can see that when you increase the temperature, there is a constant steep increase in the value of rate constant for a particular reaction, but it will become constant at a certain temperature, and beyond that value, by whatever amount you increase the temperature, there is no change in the rate constant. So temperature affects the rate constant of a reaction, but only to a certain extent. When a certain high temperature is achieved, then there will be no change in the rate constant, or you can say that it practically becomes constant. And this is the plot of the Arrhenius equation. So here we have taken ln of k on this side, y axis. On the x-axis, we have taken 1 upon t. So what would be the slope? We have just compared the natural log of the Arrhenius equation with the equation of the straight line. So the intercept here, it would be ln of a, that is the frequency factor, and slope would be minus ea upon r. So once you get the slope of this line from the experimental data and you multiply it with the gas constant, you will be getting the value of activation energy for that particular reaction. Another important concept is the Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution, and it is actually telling us what is the proportion of different energy molecules, what is the amount of the molecule having lower amount of energy, and the molecule having greater amount of energy. So a comparative distribution can be seen by using the Maxwell Boltzmann distribution, and here we are taking the temperature as the principal factor. So it is defined as a measure of the average kinetic energy of the molecule in a sample. So how you measure it? By the Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. So at any temperature, you can see that there is a wide distribution of kinetic energy. So it is not necessary that suppose you have maintained a particular temperature, and you say that all the molecules of the reactant, they are having the same kinetic energy. Even at a fixed temperature, even at a constant temperature, all the reactant molecule, they can have different amount of kinetic energy, and you have to see what is the relative distribution of the kinetic energy among the different molecules. So it is possible that some of the reactant molecule, they are having very high kinetic energy, and they can easily cross the activation energy barrier, but so many molecule, they might be having very low energy, very low kinetic energy, and still they are not able to cross the activation energy barrier. So the gist of the thing is, it is not that the kinetic energies they are distributed over all the molecules equally. It is possible that some of the molecules they could be having very high kinetic energy, and some of them are having very low kinetic energy. So the relative distribution is what it is, the Maxwell Boltzmann distribution. So you can see that at a lower temperature, from this graph, if you see, we have the fractions of molecule here on the y-axis, and on the x-axis we have kinetic energy. So let us see how the kinetic energy is distributed in different fractions of molecule. So at the low temperature, you see the molecule, the system will have low kinetic energy, right? So the value will be lower. But you see that only a small fraction of molecule they are having very high kinetic energy, but the majority of the molecule they have a low kinetic energy at lower temperature. Now, suppose if you increase the temperature by a certain factor from T1 to T2, suppose you have increased the temperature. Now, what happens at the higher temperature? At the higher temperature, what happens now? This sharpness of the curve is getting low, and now what happens now? More molecules they are having more number of molecules they are having greater amount of kinetic energy. So as you keep on increasing the kinetic energy of the molecule by providing temperature, what happens after some time when you increase the temperature? Now this is the activation energy barrier, the minimum energy required for the reaction. So this graph will cross this line of activation energy, and now what will happen? Now the rate of the reaction will be faster. So you can say that yes, when you increase the temperature, more number of reactant molecules they are available with a higher kinetic energy, and now they have, because across the activation energy barrier, they are now available for the product formation. So that is how the rate of the reaction is increased when you increase the temperature. So as the temperature increases, the curve flattens and broadens. So this flattening of the curve, this broadening actually shows that now more and more molecules they are having a high energy, high kinetic energy, and therefore at higher temperature, a large population of the molecule have higher energy. If the dotted line it represent the activation energy as the temperature increases, so does the fraction of the molecule that can overcome the activation energy barrier. So as a result, the rate of the reaction increases with increase in the temperature. So now let us go for the mathematical expression. So this fraction of molecule can be found through the expression F would be equal to e raised to power minus EA upon RT. So this F is what? It is a factor there in the Arrhenius equation, and all the other symbols they have their usual meaning, like R is the gas constant, T is temperature in Kelvin. So F is what? It is the number or fraction of the molecule which are present at that temperature with a sufficient amount of kinetic energy that we can get from the mathematical expression. Now moving forward, let us talk about another aspect of this topic, that is catalyst. And we know that what are catalysts? The catalysts, they are chemical species, and they are known to increase the rate of the reaction by decreasing the activation energy of reaction. So, is it possible that by somehow we can decrease the activation energy of a reaction? How is it possible? That can be done by, you can increase the temperature. In that case, you are not actually decreasing the activation energy, but basically you are increasing the number of the molecule having sufficient energy so that they can cross the activation energy barrier. So when you are providing temperature, you are not actually lowering down the activation energy. Rather, you are increasing the energy of the molecules. But yes, when you use the catalyst, you are actually lowering down this hill. This activation energy hill is lowered down when you are using the catalyst. So this catalyst actually performs what? It changes the mechanism by which the process occurs. So now the reaction takes place in a different path, in different direction, in different manner when you have a catalyst present. And the same product can be formed via an alternative path of a lower energy mechanism. So now what happens, because the availability of the lower path and also the surface of the catalyst, which is actually able to bind the reactant molecule and allow them to react at even at the lower energy, even at the low kinetic energy, they can perform the reaction. That is due to binding of the molecule on the catalyst surface. So now what happens? An alternative path for a lower activation energy is available, and now because more molecules they can cross the activation energy, so the rate will become high. So the catalyst is doing what? It is increasing the rate of the reaction by lowering down the activation energy barrier by providing an alternative path alternative path for the reaction to occur. Otherwise, if you look carefully, the catalyst it never get changed during the course of reaction. There is no change in the concentration of the catalyst. There is no chemical transformation of the catalyst, and it is recovered at the end of the reaction in its original form, in its original composition. So, for example, you can see here this reaction in which the H2O2 is reacting with the bromide ion in presence of proton, and in the uncatalyzed reaction, which is depicted in the red line, you can see that the activation energy is very, very high. But when you use some catalyst in the reaction, now it provides an alternative path, which is reflected in the blue line. And now a lower activation energy is required for the similar type of chemical transformation. So this is basically an alternative path, which is possible only when you are using a catalyst in the reaction. And that is how the rate of the reaction is increased by lowering down the activation energy of this reaction. So, what is a catalyst now? So, it is a substance that increases the rate of the reaction, rate of the chemical reaction without itself being consumed. So, catalyst is not getting consumed in any step of the reaction. You can recover the catalyst at the end of the reaction without any chemical change, without any change in the concentration. So, what it is doing? It is decreasing the activation energy and increasing the rate of the reaction. So now you can compare here the two chemical reactions of similar nature. Our reactant A and B, they are converting into C and D product. So if we are not using any catalyst, that is in an uncatalyzed reaction, you can see there is a high activation energy barrier, and here the activation energy is what? It is EA. So this much amount of energy needs to be gained once you want to convert the AB into CD. But what if we are using some catalyzed reaction? So in the presence of the catalyst, what happens now? A lower activation energy barrier is now there, and with the attainment of quite lower energy as compared to the uncatalyzed reaction, now the reactants can be converted into products. So here what happens? The reactant A and B, they are performing the same chemical transformation, that is into the C and D, but with an alternative path of lower energy. So that is possible only in the presence of a catalyst. So when you compare the two rates, the rate of the catalyzed reaction will always be greater than the rate of uncatalyzed reaction. The simple reason is because now the activation energy barrier is now lowered. So now, according to the Maxwell distribution, we have seen that more and more number of molecules now they are available for performing the reaction, and therefore the rate of the reaction will be high. So how a catalyst perform its function? So the one way a catalyst can speed up the reaction is by holding the reactants together and helping bonds to break. So, like in the case of uncatalyzed reaction, the reaction can take place only when the reactant molecules are colliding together. So, the simple idea is for the reaction to perform, the reactant molecule they have to come closer. They have to come close in proximity to each other. So, the one way is collisions. So, we when we are relying on the uncatalyzed reaction, we are simply increasing the number of collision by increasing the temperature. That is the only way by which we can increase the rate of the reaction. But what if you bound the reactant molecule on a particular substrate, and now what happens? The reactant molecules are coming close enough to perform the chemical reaction. So now you need not to provide energy for the molecules to collide. You need not to increase the overall kinetic energy of the system. Rather, the simple thing that is doing by catalyst, it can hold the reactant molecule on its surface, and now making them close enough, in close proximity enough for the reaction to occur. So like you can see the surface of the catalyst here, these blue spheres are the catalyst molecules, and they are basically providing a surface for the reactants like hydrogen and some hydrocarbon which is getting attached on the surface. So now on this surface you can see that the reactant molecule, they are immobilized, and because they are immobilized they are coming in close proximity of each other, and now they can react even when they have low energy. So at the end, what happens when the product is formed? The product molecules are detached from the catalyst surface. This is a simple representation of the hydrogenation of alkene on the platinum catalyst, and you can see that an alternative path of the reaction is provided by the heterogeneous catalyst. Heterogeneous is because it is in the solid state. So here, what happens? The two reactants, they need not to collide as in the case of the uncatalyzed reaction. They need not to rely on the efficiency of the collisions between the molecule. Rather, they have a catalyst where they can combine, and after the product formation, the product molecules are released. So now that is how the rate of the reaction increases in the presence of a catalyst. So when you talk about the catalyst, we can have two type of catalyst. We can have a heterogeneous catalyst in which uh, the catalyst is actually present in a different physical state at the reactant molecule. Like we have seen the previous example in which our hydrogen was a gas, the alkene was a gas, but the catalyst was solid. So that is what heterogeneous catalyst. But otherwise, it is possible that all the reactant product and the catalyst, they are in the same physical state, so it is known as the homogeneous catalyst. So here the all the substances, all the moieties involved in the reaction, they are present in the same phase. For example, the hydrogen peroxide, it decomposes very slowly in the absence of catalyst. But if you provide a catalyst here, like in the case of a bromide, the bromide ion, they can actually speed up the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide in the acidic environment. So what has changed in that environment? Let us see this the bromide ion when present in the aqueous medium and also in the acidic environment. What happens? You have 2H plus and bromide ion also present along with the hydrogen peroxide. So what they do, they actually speed up the reaction by activating the reactants through an alternative path. So you can see that you can write the two-stage mechanism for this bromide catalyzed decomposition of H2O2, and here the bromide ion. It is what? It is a homogeneous catalyst because your H2O2 is present in the aqueous medium and bromide ion is also present in the aqueous medium. So they are both having the same phase, and therefore it is what? Homogeneous catalysis. And at the end, what happens? The bromide ions are regenerated. So there is no consumption of the bromide ion in this reaction. Rather, the only function of bromide ion is to speed up the rate of the reaction without getting consumed itself. The net reaction will be what? It will be similar to the original reaction that we have seen. This would be the net reaction. So this bromide ion, it is getting consumed and regenerated in the successive reaction cycles, and therefore it speed up the decomposition of H2O2. So let us see again how the catalyst increases the reaction rate. So in general, the catalyst, they operate by lowering the overall activation energy EA for a reaction. So basically, they are lowering the activation hill. Now, however, the catalyst can operate by increasing the number of effective collisions. So, the number of the effective collision, they are actually increased due to the presence of an activated surface area of the catalyst. Now, the catalyst usually provides a completely different mechanism for the reaction to occur. And in the preceding peroxide decomposition example that we have just seen, in the absence of a catalyst, the H2O2 decomposes directly to water and oxygen. But when you take the catalyst in the presence of the bromide ion, now what happens? The bromine is also generated as the intermediate. So when a catalyst adds an intermediate, now the activation energy for the both step must be lower than the activation energy of the uncatalyzed reaction. So this was the example of a homogeneous catalyst where H2O2 and bromide ion both are present in the aqueous medium. But generally in the industrial processes, we see the heterogeneous catalyst, in which what happens, a solid catalyst is used in order to increase the rate of different gaseous or aqueous reaction. So here the solid catalyst which remains in the contact with gaseous reactant and gaseous product, it is what? It is the heterogeneous catalysis. And a very good example of heterogeneous catalysis is the catalytic converters in the cars. So in the cars, we have catalytic converters, and they basically convert the unburned hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water, and there that is how they decrease the level of pollution which is released with the vehicular exhaust. So many industrial catalysts are also heterogeneous similarly, and how the heterogeneous catalyst they perform their job. So what happens when you are talking about the heterogeneous catalyst? Now the process of adsorption takes place. So adsorption is nothing but the process of absorption at the surface. So that adsorption is what? It is the first step of the catalysis, in which the reacted molecules they bind on the catalyst surface. So this is the first step, which is known as adsorption. Now this, after the adsorption occurs, this is observed due to the high reactivity of atom or ion on the surface of the solid. So generally it has been seen that the surface of any substance, it is always accompanied with a more amount of energy as compared to the bulk of the substance. So due to the high reactivity of the surface on the catalyst, what happens, the reactant molecule they quickly combines on the surface. Now, these molecules are adsorbed onto the active site on the catalyst surface. So, the binding sites on the catalyst surface, they are known as the active sites. And these active sites are basically responsible for the adsorption of reactant molecule to make them closer and to convert them into the product. So, number of the active sites on the given amount of catalyst, it depends on several factors such as the nature of the catalyst, how the catalyst was prepared, and how the catalyst was treated prior to use. So after each of the heterogeneous catalysis cycle, we have to regenerate the catalyst, because we have to regenerate the active sites present on the surface of catalyst. One very good example which we have seen is the hydrogenation of the alkene, and it the reaction, this gaseous reaction takes place in the presence of a metal catalyst like nickel, platinum, palladium. Any of the metal in the finely divided state can be taken here. So in that case, the reaction occurs quickly at the room temperature. So here are the steps of the catalysis. Firstly, the ethylene and the hydrogen molecules, they are adsorbed onto the active site of the metal surface. In the second step, the hydrogen bond it breaks, and the hydrogen atom migrate about the metal surface and runs into a ethylene molecule on the surface. In the third step, when the hydrogen atom they collide with the ethylene molecule on the surface, then the carbon-carbon pi bond it breaks, and carbon-hydrogen sigma bonds are formed. And in the last step, when the C2H6 is formed, it is deabsorbed from the surface of the catalyst. So when the ethylene and hydrogen they are adsorbed onto a surface, less energy is required to break the bond, because now the molecule is immobilized, and the activation energy for this reaction is lowered. So therefore, what happens now? More and more molecules they will undergo the product formation, and therefore rate of the reaction will increase. So this is again the same diagram we have seen. This is the hydrogen molecule getting adsorbed onto the surface of the metal catalyst, and this is the alkene molecule, carbon and C2H4, C4H4 you can see, and this is the active site on the metal surface. So you can see that it is not that the entire surface of the metal is involved in the catalyst. Rather, it has active sites at certain places only, right? So at these places, the reactant molecules are getting adsorbed and getting immobilized. And once they are attached on the active site on the surface of the catalyst, now they are coming closer and they're changing their orientation and combining together. Finally, there is a formation of the product molecule, and it is getting desorbed from the catalyst surface. So that is how the catalyst it remains unchanged at the end of the reaction, and it provide an alternative path for the reaction to occur, and the same reaction can be performed using a lower energy pathway for the uh, lower energy pathway for the same type of chemical transformation. Now let us see a similar phenomena, that is about the enzymes. So these enzymes are nothing but they are the catalyst in the biological system. And why do we need catalyst in the biological system? Because the very important thing is you cannot increase the energy of the molecule by providing temperature, by providing the heat energy. Because we know that the biomolecules, they are so sensitive for the temperature and pH ranges. So you cannot actually use some acid or base, or you cannot provide a high temperature for the reaction to complete. So all the reactions, all the biological reactions, they are actually, they have to complete, they have to transform into the chemical product at that temperature only, at the temperature of the biological system. So at that ambient temperature, when you cannot increase the temperature, the use of a catalyst is must. So in the biological system, the catalysts are also what? They are also biomolecules, and we call them enzymes. So these enzymes are also very much susceptible to the temperature and pH, and these enzymes are what they are providing the active site on their surface. So on the surface of the enzyme, an active site is formed, which is specific to the substrate. So only this substrate can combine to this enzyme. So enzyme and substrate, they are specific to each other, and for each of the substrate you can have a different enzyme in the biological system. So now this substrate get fits into the site provided on the enzyme surface, and finally, what do we get? We get an enzyme substrate complex. Now, this enzyme substrate complex decomposes into the enzyme and product molecules. So, this is known as the lock and key mechanism, in which the active site of the enzyme becomes a lock and the substrate becomes a key. And that is how the products are formed at the same temperature via lower energy alternative pathway. So enzymes are nothing but the biological catalyst, and again they are regenerated at the end of the reaction. You can have about 30,000 enzymes in the human body, and most of the enzymes, they are nothing but the protein molecules, and they have a very large molecular mass. So generally they have the folded structure, and the structure of a protein can goes up to the quaternary level in the enzyme, and due to that they have a very specific shapes, and due to their specific shape and specific active sites, most of the enzyme, they actually catalyze very specific reactions. So the substrate that undergo reaction at the active site on the enzyme, we are calling it as the substrate. So a substrate locks into the enzyme and a fast reaction occurs. The products then move away from the enzyme. So that is how the enzymes are converting the biological reactant into biological product. Now, the interesting factor is the only substrate that fit into the enzyme lock can be involved in the reaction. So, if a molecule binds tightly to an enzyme so that another substrate cannot displace it, then the active site is blocked and the catalyst is inhibited. So, these substances which have some structural similarities with the substrate, they are known as the enzyme inhibitors. So, on one side, when you see that in the enzyme substrate complex, the binding is reversible in nature. Once the inhibitor is combined to the enzyme, this is irreversible nature and it never dissociate again. So what happens? The active site on the enzyme substrate is completely destroyed. And that is how the enzyme is inhibited from performing its original action. So many of the poisons, they act like this, and they what they do, they bind to the active site of the enzyme and they block some really essential enzyme in our body. So what happens? They inhibit the enzyme to perform its natural function, and that is how they interrupt the metabolic process, which can be lethal in nature. So you can conclude that enzymes are extremely efficient catalysts, and they're also is extremely specific in nature. So the number of the individual catalytic events occurring at the active site per unit time, it is called the turnover number. So a large turnover number, it can correspond to very low activation energy value. That is how the reactions are taking place quickly within the unit time. But if the turnover number is very low, in that case you can see that the activation energy value must be very high. So per unit time lesser changes are observed. So this is the schematic of enzyme catalysis. This is the enzyme molecule. You can see it is really a very complex molecule, and this is the active site of the enzyme in which this substrate molecule fits in. And finally, this is the log, this is the key, and finally what happens, the products are formed at the end, which are desorbed from the or detached from the site of the enzyme. So this is a reversible reaction, and once again the enzymes become free for further enzymatic reaction. Another good example of catalyst is the Ostwald process. And the Ostwald process, this is a heterogeneous catalysis in which ammonia is converted into nitric acid in the presence of a platinum catalyst. You can see that this conversion of ammonia into nitric acid, it takes place through a series of reactions. Three elementary reactions are involved. First, the ammonia is converted into NO, then NO is converted into NO2, and finally it is hydrolyzed to form the nitric acid. So here the platinum rhodium catalyst is used in the Ostwald process, and that is how the reaction takes place. Now, like we talk about the catalytic converters which are there in the exhaust system of the vehicles. They are basically the catalytic converters, the heterogeneous catalyst, and what they do from the vehicular exhaust. If you have unburned hydrocarbons in the exhaust, then they are catalytically converted into the carbon dioxide and water molecule. So this type of exhaust is lesser harmful as compared to the unburnt hydrocarbon fumes. So this actually decreases the VOC content of the emission, and also the oxide of the nitrogen, if they are present in the exhaust, they are also catalytically converted into harmless nitrogen and oxygen. So that is how the catalytic converters, once they are installed into the exhaust system of the vehicle, they actually reduces the pollutant load of the exhaust. So now this is the quiz from today's lecture. You have to solve these questions. So first question is, what is activation energy? You have to write down the definition and how it is defined using the Arrhenius equation. Then what is the threshold energy? Then you have to draw the energy profile diagram of exothermic reaction, and you have to label the activation energy for the forward and reverse direction and enthalpy of the forward and reverse reaction. Now last question is, how does such a curve change with the addition of catalyst? So how you can draw the same diagram when you have a catalyst present in the reaction. So these are the references, and that is how we conclude our discussion on the chemical kinetics. That is all from my side for today. Thank you so much.